Halloween night in a rural part of Fairfax County, Virginia, has taken on a particularly sinister meaning. In 2011, a 14-hour-long traffic checkpoint turned away over 200 people approaching the Colchester Overpass, not far from the suburbs of Washington, D.C. A bizarre phenomenon had attracted the crowd of thrill-seekers from miles around. Terrifying events during the 1970s have engendered a legend which had brought the horde of strangers to a modest railroad overpass in a forested area near Bull Run. Since 2003, local authorities had begun to control access to the area on Halloween Eve at the end of October. The unlikely attraction was the chance of witnessing a man in a bunny costume who had possibly not been sighted for more than 40 years. Since the hair-raising events in the 1970s, the region around the Colchester Overpass has been associated with an urban legend from which the overpass gained its unofficial title, Bunny Man Bridge. The details of the legend vary with the telling, but there are some elements that they invariably share. A man in a bunny costume attacks motorists near the Colchester Overpass wielding an axe or a hatchet. Most of the time, witnesses see the image of an axe-wielding man dressed up like a rabbit, the terrifying sight that is at the heart of the eerie legend of the Bunny Man. The legend has been spotlighted on the Amazon show Lore and made its way onto the silver screen in the 2011 movie Bunny Man, which led to 2 sequels. The phenomenon raises questions as to who really is the Bunny Man and why does he allegedly haunt this particular isolated stretch of road in Virginia. One historian has dug deep to discover the origins of this unsettling legend. Brian A. Conley at the Fairfax County Public Library found that 2 otherwise unrelated incidents had taken place 10 days apart, both in October of 1970. The first involved a man called Robert Bennett. The Air Force Academy cadet and his fiancée were parked in a field on Guinea Road in the nearby town of Burke, Virginia. They had driven to the spot after a football game with the intention of visiting an uncle who lived across the street. As the 2 sat in the front seat with the motor running, the right front window was shattered with a hatchet. A man who was reportedly wearing something white over his head had rushed out of the bushes behind the vehicle and hurled the hatchet through the car window while shouting, "You're on private property and I have your tag number." Naturally, Bennett immediately put the vehicle in gear and sped away, taking the hatchet, which was now inside the car, with them. The legend grew when Bennett reported that he had observed that the 5'8" man was wearing a white suit with bunny ears. However, his fiancée claimed that it appeared to her that the man was wearing a peaked white hood. Just 10 days later, another event occurred which fed into the narrative that created the legend of Bunny Man Bridge. In Kings Park West, also located along Guinea Road, a security guard named Paul Phillips had been on duty patrolling a housing development construction site after dark. He suddenly came upon a man in a bunny costume who was positioned on the front porch of an unfinished home and was chopping at the porch post using a hatchet or long-handled axe. This time, Phillips was emphatic in describing the man as wearing a white bunny suit with floppy ears and quoted in a contemporary newspaper account. As Phillips approached, the man threatened him, declaring that he was trespassing and if he came any closer, he would decapitate him. What happened next was completely bizarre. According to an October 31, 1970 press article in the Minneapolis Star, the strange figure then turned and hippity-hopped away into nearby woods. Each of these sightings on their own would probably have been quickly forgotten, but the 2 occurring in sharp order with their unusual shared details, the hatchet, the accusations of trespass, and the apparent bunny outfit were more than enough to get an urban legend started. Nor did the occurrences end there. The Fairfax County Police began an investigation and found themselves flooded with more than 50 reports from local residents who claimed to have seen the Bunny Man. This harnessed the attention of newspapers from all around the area. Besides the Minneapolis Star, other media outlets like the Washington Post ran recurring stories throughout October and into November about the Bunny Man, including a report that he had actually eaten a man's missing cat. Of course, even in those early newspaper accounts, significant variation in the tales had already begun. In fact, in 1973, not long after the actual incidents, a student at the University of Maryland completed a research paper in which she counted some 54 variations on the two incidents. It's also queried how the legend managed to spread from Guinea Road in the DC suburbs and finally attach to Colchester Overpass near Clifton, Virginia. Mary C. Stakira, a reporter for the Centerville Patch, documented the evolution of the legend. She wrote that a local law had recorded that late one night, around the turn of the 20th century, a bus carrying inmates from a mental institution crashed near Clifton. 2 of the men absconded into the woods. Soon after that, people started making gruesome discoveries of the remains of dead rabbits hanging from the trees and obviously having been eaten raw. The findings frightened the local residents, but one night they found something much more terrifying: the lifeless figure of one of the escapees hanging from a tree. According to some accounts, the body had a note attached signed "The Bunny Man." Thus began a manhunt for the other inmate, who was finally cornered on the railroad tracks above Colchester Overpass. There on the bridge, he was struck by a train while trying to make his getaway, and, so the story goes, his spirit has haunted that location ever since. This poses 2 problems with the legend, which seems to have spread far beyond Fairfax County. The Colchester Overpass wasn't constructed until 1906, so well past the turn of the century, and there was never any insane asylum in the area. There are also no historical facts to back up the legend. Some people have even described the bunny outfit as a Ku Klux Klan robe, claiming that a local was harassing and threatening people for trespassing on his property. No one was ever brought to justice over the attacks, fueling the mystery. Bunnyman Bridge does look very spooky at night, and the legend lives on. It warns that if someone crosses through the tunnel at midnight on Halloween, the hatchet-bearing rabbit will appear and dispatch the bold intruders, suspending them from the bridge. The local police were turning away the hundreds of out-of-town thrill-seekers until 4:30 a.m. in 2011, at least allowing relieved neighbours a peaceful Halloween.